Okay. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to our first, technically second, official Pixelbits weekly wrap-up live stream. First time doing this. Will, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, sir. I can. How about me?
You sound good. And for you guys tuning in, do we sound okay? We did a little sound check, but, first time shenanigans, so you never really know. So
True.
Well, Will and I kind of like put this together because we were like, it'd be really fun to have a chance to just kind of engage with you guys, kind of like an unstructured, like, coffee talk, I guess. Like, let's just
The
chat.
one time I don't have coffee.
That's right, actually. But we thought, it'd be good just to like hang out and talk just for like maybe half an hour. And like I said, it's unstructured. So we're going to kind of just let you guys drive the conversation, talk about Critical Role, Worlds Beyond Number, and also D&D. Will and I really love D&D. We've both DM'd. I just had my 40th session with one of my groups this week.
Hey.
So we also kind of wanted a space for people to be able to ask questions and if you had DM questions. But yeah, so Will, my friend, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I a little tired, but maybe it's because I haven't had my coffee yet. But I'm doing good. How about you?
So not only have you not had, not only are you not having second cup, you haven't had cup numero uno.
Not yet. I don't. Yeah, something's weird. Something's off today, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the Mercury retrograde or something. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I don't really know what that means, but I have heard that before.
I don't either, but someone like just kind of like slung it out very casually. Like we were talking about like our kid not sleeping well, and they're like, well, Mercury retrograde. And then they continue with the conversation. And I was like, did you just play that? Like, am I dumb? Or did you just play that like maybe it is a common thing. I don't know. So
Well, I think it has something to do with like its orbit, right? Like where it is. And then I guess it's astrology.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So, well, let's get into it. I feel like the most interesting thing as of late is the engagement around episode 78 of campaign 3 of Critical Role.
Yeah.
I know you haven't yet seen the error of your ways, and that's okay. I'm still holding out for you. But it's been pretty crazy seeing the 50-50 split, it feels like, of how strongly people seem to feel about. And for people tuning in the most recent episode of Critical Role, one of the main characters made a decision, and that decision has just been either criticized or approved of or, what have you. So I don't know. Have you ever seen something like this happen in the past 2 campaigns of Critical Role?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
There's definitely
Oh, my
moments
gosh.
that split the fan base, but this feels, definitely one of the bigger ones, at least, that I've like actively engaged in, where like I could see both sides, I guess, because a lot of the times, the one half is just being toxic, but I think both sides of this one have genuine and understandable like explanations behind them.
Yeah. Well, for you guys in the chat, I'd love to know what you guys think. Like, Will knows that I've only been watching Critical Role since Campaign 3 started. I say only. We're almost 80 episodes deep. Will obviously has seen all of Campaign 1 and 2. Curious y'all's reaction in terms of this kind of a fever pitch. Like, people are really animated about it. But, hopefully people will move on from it, right? And I saw some people on Reddit saying, this is why I'm not going to watch the show anymore. And I was like,
What?
okay, maybe that's a little too much. But,
Yeah. Come on now. That's extreme.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many takes that like extreme. Those are the people that maybe need to take a break from the show, honestly.
Maybe it's good.
Yeah.
Muradel in the chat said, I think Bell's Hells were in the right for criticizing Ashton, but I think if Oram would have been there, he would have brought down the heat a little bit. I think that's a great take. I think Oram, we mentioned this in our deep dive discussion, Oram's kind of the dad of the group, kind of like, he's just kind of like the clearer head, I guess. But I think Liam is going to be, is he still sick or... I guess we still have another week, right? Or 2 more weeks? I can't remember.
Just 1 week now. So like next Thursday they're back.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if they've ever like, and y'all correct me if they have put out some sort of statement, but I think him being sick maybe is just speculation. I don't know if they've said why he was absent, but then maybe they did, and I just forgot.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think someone would have given Ashton like at least a pat on the back, not like approval, but just like, hey, you good, man? Or I don't know.
I'm really interested what would have happened, because I mean, he is the dad of the group, but like something we've been talking about recently is kind of how he's at moments like straying away from that, like dealing with his demons, you know?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, Ashton has been the one that's kind of filled in the dad role a little bit recently, even, I would say. So I think it's easy to like think that Oram maybe would have been the one to like check in and like be kind, but I honestly could see him being just as angry. So like I'm really curious. Yeah. And maybe we will kind of get like a not retroactive, but or what recon, what's the word I'm looking for? But like maybe they will still have a scene that will like kind of fill that same spot, even though it won't be right in the moment or whatever.
Yeah, Joshua
but
says,
I'm very curious.
Sorry. Joshua says, this decision is right up there with the beacon and the cupcake of campaign 2 in my mind, which I'm out of the loop on. I'll ask you though, agree or disagree?
I will I'll agree on the beacon for sure. And I don't want to spoil these moments for you by like diving deeper into them, because they're both,
because I guess I'll be watching the Mighty 9 animated series too. So
yeah. Because they're both incredible moments. But the beacon, very similar to this. I would totally agree. Cupcake, again, I don't want to like spoiler it by giving you any type of context, but I feel like that one's slightly different because it wasn't like as divisive in the sense of like some people thinking it shouldn't have happened and some people thinking it should have. But definitely like a huge talking point moment for sure.
Yeah. One thing that is a bit tiresome, and you and I have talked about this before, but even though it feels like a 50-50 split, it feels like there's a weird anti-Marisha Ray energy around this episode, like more critical than other characters. And I got to be honest, it kind of feels like the Marisha Ray hate bandwagon that we're somewhat familiar with, and I think was a thing in campaign 1. For you guys watching our stream, I have a player in my campaign, or my second campaign, where people were asking what's Critical Role, yada yada, and this guy spoke up and was like, yeah, they're all amazing voice actors except for one. And I was like, who? And he was like, you know. And I was like, no, who? And he's like, the only one who's there because he's married to the DM. And I was like, Marisha Ray? And I was giving him a hard time. I was like, come on, bro. And obviously I'm like exaggerating how he said it. He wasn't like a 12-year-old teenager in a dramatic fashion, but that kind of stuff makes me sad too, is like, these are just entertainers just enjoying what they're doing, and I hate the personal stuff.
Right. Same.
So,
but yeah, I definitely have seen some of that exaggerated Marisha ire in this situation is too, with a lot of people comparing the reaction to what Ashton did and the lack of reaction to what's going on with Laudna and Delilah. And I don't think they're comparable. So I think it's like a false equivalency to say like everyone got so mad at Ashton, but nobody's getting mad at Laudna.
Well, I mean, I don't want to open up this again between us. There is, I think, merit to every person in the team has their demons. Like, and we've talked about that extensively. And, Ashton's in the limelight right now, but I don't know if there's been an appropriate level of like, hey, like that's really probably not good for our group that you, worship this old, witch or whatever who, murdered a bunch of people. Worship's too strong of a word, but you get it. So
yeah, and again, not that we need to get into this, but I think it is just so different because in Laudna's case, Oram and Ashton both like encouraged it almost. I don't know if it's fair to say like encouraged. I don't know if that is a fair word to use, but like when she killed Bordor, she looked to Oram and he gave her the head nod, and Ashton didn't like step in. So it's almost like it's the kind of like elephant in the room that nobody's talking about.
It's a very gray party, like, and maybe that's like too cliche a term, but there's, I guess it's good they're having this team building event coming up, because like they definitely got to work out some stuff.
They do.
And this kind of is a callback to, I feel like it was like in the first 15 episodes or so when Oram was like, hey, we got to get this together. Like everybody's got some stuff going on. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this next episode. Hopefully Liam's back for the team building scavenger hunt, but you're totally right. Like they desperately need it. So very interested. And also just kind of an aside, sorry if like we're missing comments. Like this is our first time doing this, so like I keep forgetting to look over there. But thank you for explaining retrograde. And also I have not gotten the Jawbone thing yet, but thank you for reminding me, because I do want to pick it up if it's not too late.
I didn't know what that was.
It's from Fantasy High, Dimension 20.
Oh, okay.
That we've been watching.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we put a poll into the channel. Who is going to be the big bad of Campaign 3? And it looks like this is very interesting, actually. So we had 4 options. We had Ludinus, Liliana, Imogen's mom, Otahan Thule, or a member of Bell's Hells. And coming in first place at 58% was Ludinus Deleth, which I feel like is the most obvious answer, but the power discrepancy is still like the biggest question mark I have of like, how are they going to fight this, god of a mage, I guess, not literal, but in second place though, at 21% came a member of Bell's Hells themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which this has been kind of an underlying story tone of, can Imogen be trusted? We haven't talked about it recently, but that one episode where Oram like turned to Fern and was like, hey, if Imogen like goes crazy, you're gonna have to be the one to kill her.
Yeah.
Just very casually.
Yeah.
Which in my mind was when some of the most party dynamics was most interesting, but I don't know. What's your take, man, on the final boss of the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what. Hopefully, you're okay with me calling you Moo, Muradel. I'm a big shortened name person because I'm lazy, but I kind of agree that I think it's going to be Predathos, but that may be in the form, like maybe it's fair to say Ludinus and Predathos are kind of like the same in a way, in terms of the big bad. I don't. I mean, Imogen certainly could have like a weird flip given her connection to everything. Laudna as well, if this Delilah thing manifests in a strange way. So I do think that like it is possible that like we could have a Bell's Hells big bad, but I really don't see that happening. As like I could see an encounter or like a story point or a plot thread that like revolves around that, but I don't see it being the final thing. So my money is Ludinus / Predathos. Yeah,
I think Predathos is. I mean, it feels like Ludinus has to be involved in some way, but also Predathos has been kind of like this Chekhov's gun, I guess, a bit. Like we have to be engaging in some way with it. But another question, we don't have a poll up for it, but something we've talked about that I'm curious you guys who are watching, how much longer do you think we have in this campaign? And this is something Will and I have talked about quite a bit. It feels like we're heading to final boss territory or like final zone. Like it could be Ruidus. It might not be. We have this, it feels like we've had like these kind of like tiny missions. Like we had, when the party reunited, Oram had a reason he was like, let's go. And they're like, well, let's go check on Keyleth first. And then it was like, all right, let's do it. And they're like, well, you probably need some more power. You should head to the Shattered Teeth. And then they're like, all right, let's go. And it's like, well, we should go talk to Grandma Mori, have a little team building event. So there's been these little things that have like popped up that have kind of delayed it. But very curious how much you all think is left in terms of either settings or number of episodes, which Will, I think you said you weren't really split either way on it. That it could go, Actually, I don't put words in your mouth. What did you say about it?
I mean, I feel like anything could happen, really, which I know is like a non-answer answer, but and this is like something we've talked about like throughout all of campaign 3 in our discussions, when like we realized about Ruidus and Protothos, and we were only like 30 episodes in, maybe around about, and so we were like, man, like this feels like kind of the BBEG, but it's still so early. Like, what's the timeline look like here? And I don't think Matt even knows, because I think he's intentionally left it kind of ambiguous as far as to like, hey, there's no ticking clock right now, but like anything could kind of happen at any moment. So I think I think he has a plan for sure, and he's not strictly waiting on the players, but I think it's somewhat up to them kind of how this timeline fleshes out. But if you made me put a number on it, I would guess we maybe have about 30 to 40 episodes left.
Okay. Which
would put us a little bit, which would put us around campaign 1's length and not campaign 2's length.
Campaign 2 was like around 150, right?
Yeah, something close to that.
Okay. JF Fate, maybe. I feel like it's only 50% through. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get some traction still, in my opinion. I kind of agree. But isn't it also true, like sometimes when they finish a campaign, there are just like threads that are kind of like left unfurled?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the norm, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know you haven't seen campaign 2, but you've seen all of the reunion episodes. So kind of in the same way that like those were pretty major like plot threads that clearly didn't get resolved in the main campaign. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible, and I'm expecting not everything to get resolved by the final episode, because they're certainly going to have Bell's Hell's reunions, I'm sure. You know?
Yeah. Joshua said C1 was 115 episodes, C2 was 145. I guess C1 was a little bit longer since a large chunk of it had not been streamed.
C2, you mean?
No, C1, since they started streaming around level 9.
C1 was shorter though.
Right. I'm saying
I'm
saying it was longer than 115 sessions.
Oh, yeah, like their campaign in effect was long. Yes.
Yeah. And Ken mentioned not everything gets resolved usually, so yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our stream, funny enough, already. Maybe it's going to be an hour. I don't know. But we wanted to also reserve a portion of our stream for just like general D&D, Dungeons and Dragons conversation. Give you guys an opportunity to share a little bit about maybe what you're playing, what kind of modules you're enjoying, and also create an opportunity for us to have a little bit of a back and forth on questions you might have about D&D. Now, Will and I are far from amazing DM experts. I've played in a campaign with Will as the DM. He's an amazing DM. And then, like I mentioned, I have 2 separate campaigns that I DM. One of them we've been DMing. I've been DMing for about 2 years now, around 40 sessions. So we just open up the floor for any either insights, questions you have about DMing or Dungeons and Dragons, or opinions you have. And while you're thinking about that, I'll go ahead. We did have a Survey Monkey up for people to put in any questions they might have. And I think every week we'll do this, and we'll just put on the post section of the on YouTube community, we'll have an option for you to put in questions there or just comments or feedback. But one question we got, and I apologize. Oh, this is from Andy, actually. Andy says, I'm attempting to become more comfortable running games. I have done a D&D one-shot in the past. I found myself being very, very anxious, as it was something I'd never done before. And I was wondering if you had any recommendations on how to overcome the anxiety of a new DM. I want to run Candela soon, but I don't want to be as nervous as last time. Thank you in advance, Andy. What are your thoughts, my friend?
That's tough, because like I feel like it also kind of depends who you're playing with. Like I'm assuming they're playing with their friends. In which case I would say there's nothing to be nervous about. But I know, like, I get nervous every time before I DM, and I play with my friends too. But it's just like once you get into the groove after like the first 10-15 minutes, that kind of like washes away. I wish I had more actionable advice, because I know exactly this feeling that they're talking about. But at least for me, like, the more prep I did, the better I felt about it. But even still, even if I had done a ton of prep, you know, like 2 hours before, I'm like, I'm not ready. Like, I haven't had enough time. But I don't know, like, try not to worry about it, because especially if you're playing with your friends. I mean, if you're playing with like randos, who knows? But if you're playing with your friends, they're not judging you. They're there to have a fun time. Like, you know, just try to get those worries out, because you're the only one that has them. It would be my advice.
Yeah, and Will knows it's almost like a weekly occurrence that I text him right before my D&D session. It's like, super nervous. I hope it's fun.
Yeah,
because it's such a rarity to have people playing with you, especially like long term. I think and this was like years ago that I saw the stat, but it was basically like 90% of parties will never make it to level 10. And a large number also would never make it to level 5. So we all know the feeling of the D&D party like falling apart. And so there is a lot of pressure for every session to be good enough for your players to come back. But I really agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of times that anxiety and pressure is self-created. I know, talking to my wife, Joy, because she's one of our players, after a session, I'll be like, hey, was this fun? What'd you think about this? And she's like, yeah, it was great. And like things that I thought were, that I was nervous about, ended up not being a big deal.
Yeah.
I think something else too, you mentioned this kind of already, but like, depending on who you're playing with, I think like setting expectations, like we talk, not we, but like it gets thrown around like the Matt Mercer effect. I've found that most players don't actually expect like a world shattering story. And sometimes I feel like that Matt Mercer effect is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, they're going to expect me to be Matt Mercer. Like, honestly, none of my players have ever heard of Matt Mercer. I mean, one of them has, and a couple of them like now in playing D&D have gotten involved in Critical Role, but most of them have no clue. So I think setting expectations and also like setting yourself up for success by just being mindful, like going to Andy's question about Candela, and maybe you can speak to this. My impression of Candela is that it's very heavy story content, which it might not be. But if it's my first time, if it's my first time DMing, I would be more akin to put my players in a cave with goblins than I would like some kind of, cosmic horror, which again, I don't really know if that's the case with Candela, but you might disagree. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it just depends. I mean, that might be more comfortable of a wheelhouse, like the creepy horror aesthetic. But I get what you're saying. But I do think that I guess it depends on the game, right? But I think Candela generally would be considered more story focused than 5e, because some people play 5e and they don't care about the story at all.
True.
It is like very heavily woven in with Candela.
Well, and I think about like Curse of Strahd is a very challenging, and there's elements of it that are very tedious. Like because there's like hidden traps and like hidden monsters, like a mimic. It can feel kind of clunky as a first time player, and so I think sometimes your prep, it's just as important to think about what's going to be palatable to your players. Which, like you said, if they want something like Candela, or if you have a group maybe they've seen Candela and they really want to experience something like that, I think it's an easy win. But I think sometimes the whole prep conversation, it's just like, get an easy win first before going for the heavy stuff.
Yeah, totally. And in talking about this, I feel like I now have a more actionable piece of advice for that anxiety, is because at least for me, a lot of it came from, what if I'm not ready, like for something they throw at me, or what if I freeze? So one thing I did do is I always had one NPC ready that the party like did not know about, like a brand new NPC. And I had one like kind of insert anywhere event. Now that event could be like a quest, or it could be just something that is going to happen. So I always had those two things built that were not related to the current happenings in the campaign, so that if something did come my way, I could be like, okay, here's an NPC that I can throw in. I've already designed their personality. I already know like what they want, what they're going to do. So like I can play that character and throw them into any situation. And similarly, an event that I know that's very, very vague, but it changed from session to session what I would have planned. But having those types of things to fall back on, even if you are thrown into something that is like completely, like your players do something completely out of the blue, it's nice to be like, okay, well, I can at least throw this at them and, stall if nothing else.
Yeah. And I think also with that too, it's okay for your players to, and I'm going to kind of like speak out of both sides of my mouth here. Like on one side of things, I try to not let the players know how the sauce gets made. But on the other side of things, like it's okay to be transparent and be like, I don't know. Like I've had players be like, what's this person's name? And I'm like, it is, and then I had a player most recently who she's a druid who she's been casting Speak with Plants. Like it's been a central piece of the campaign. Well, in our most recent session, they're in this big city, and the city has this massive kind of like Sun Tree-esque thing, but much smaller scope, but it's called the Aegis Tree. And it's like been alive for 1,000 years, like this vestige of all these different things. And like immediately meeting it, she goes, I want to cast Speak with Plants on it. And I was like, yes.
Oh God.
This is a very obvious thing that you would do. And yet, and she just like read me immediately. She's like, you have no idea what it would say. And I was like, let's save that for next session. So I think stuff like that it kind of builds camaraderie and it's fun for people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, certainly.
Okay. Moo said, what happens behind the DM screen stays behind the DM screen. Yes, but I also love how Brennan does like the over in front of the table rolls, which I've used sometimes. That's really fun. Brewmancer mentioned I always start my campaigns at level 3, which I think is also great advice, because level 1, it's very dangerous for your players, and also there's not as many options. And then Ken said Pixelus AP win. What does that mean? What's an AP?
Actual play.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. And then Brew mentioned I create a name bank for NPCs. Yeah, absolutely. One masculine, one feminine, and one gender neutral. Yeah, I think having that stuff on the side can be really great too. So
yeah, certainly.
Well, we're at the end. This went by really fast.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, anything else you'd add about D&D before we kind of start to close?
I mean, not just vaguely, not just like in general. Nothing coming to mind, but I was just gonna say, yeah, this did go by really fast, but this was kind of just an experiment, a test for us. So like as we go, maybe we go longer, we try different things, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching today and for chatting with us. Again, we just wanted to do something like this for y'all to kind of hang out with us and us have an actual conversation. We're going to do it every Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time. So if you got half an hour, you got a lunch break, you can jump in and join us. A couple of announcements real quick. We have our next Worlds Beyond Number episode coming soon. I think Will and I are going to record that today. You got to get into our Discord. We have so much chatter and conversation that's happening in there about the latest episodes and just random D&D stuff. And then also Sundays, we have our Sunday Fun Day. We have our watch party on Sunday evenings. And we're officially in December, my friend. So I haven't checked with you on the movie, but I have an idea for Sunday night. Unless you already chose it. Did you already choose it? Okay, cool.
I have not.
So, yeah, what were you going to say?
It just left me. I did have something, but it left me. This isn't it, but I will say, y'all gotta start watching Worlds Beyond Number if you aren't yet.
I'm
gonna keep saying this. Good. I know you guys are probably tired of me saying it, but
yeah,
we have an amazing Critical Role community, and I would love to, build up our Worlds Beyond as well because it is so good. So y'all should definitely check it out if you're not yet.
Yeah. Philmatic says, hey folks, sending love from Thailand. That's so cool to have you tuning in.
That is cool.
So we love you guys. Y'all are awesome. We love doing this D&D conversation geek stuff that we love. So Anyway, we'll catch you next Friday at 1:00. See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Now I must figure out how to end this.